Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. The note out in front should say so. I took a little downtime after the Super Bowl, as I always do. 27 years in a row, I went to Super Bowls. This year I did not go, watched it on TV, and thought, week after the Super Bowl seems like a good week to work on the business instead of in the business. I'm going to be making a lot of changes around here with the studio. We're dismantling the leg lamp, and I'm going to start standing and moving around so Dr. Steve doesn't have to break my hips over at Elliott Chiropractic Life Center. But I'll tell you what, I just thought this week, before I get going, I'm going to have some of my favorite guests on to sort of ramp up into the new Baltimore Positive, into what used to be baseball season around here and used to be Triple Crown season around here, Derby prep and all of that. Dick Jerardi has been my friend since the days of Sports First. And Jerardi, I'm going to do this for you right now. I do have I found the Sports First pin. I think I told you and Rasig that I couldn't find it. It turned out it was attached to the leg lamp the whole time. This is I'm going to hold this up for you. This is where I met Dick Jerardi, Sports First.
Oh, my. Look at that.
You like that? And it's a very, very tiny pin, as you can see, up against the sweatshirt. But
Nestor, I actually was cleaning out the basement in the fall, and I think I have every issue of Sports First.
Really?
I think so.
I might have one issue. I had it out for a while. Now I put it away. I had a story. The first story I ever wrote, the first headline I ever had in my life was Warren Spahn. I called Warren Spahn to do a Where Are They Now story. I'm 15 years old, calling Hartshorn, Oklahoma, in the 405 area code or whatever it was, and said, Spahn, Warren Spahn. They gave me his number. I picked up the phone. I called. Warren Spahn answered the phone. I told him I was related to Louis Aparicio, and he sat back and talked to me for 30 minutes, and I wrote a story. Yeah. So, and then you get Velox's. This was my first ever byline in my life in the News American. I don't ask me why I have this on my desk. I have a handful of things on my desk. But I wrote about Teresa Andrews, the swimmer. You see that?
Yeah.
My first ever byline. And this is, by the way, your racing picks might be on here. Hold on here. Lamb, Petro, Jerardi. Dude, their name's on here.
Yeah.
Hold on here. It says so right there. You see Jerardi?
I do. Oh, my God. That's
Sovereign Son in the first. I wonder if he won and what he paid.
I could look it up somewhere. What's the date?
The date on this would be Wednesday, August 1st, 1984.
Oh, my
okay?
Wow.
And, I just brought this up a couple weeks ago because I was at the Super Bowl in Houston. Was it 4 years ago? And they came by and said, would you like to have Mary Lou Renner on your show? And I'm like, of course. So she came by, and I had ice cream for 15 minutes with Mary Lou, and it was the greatest interview of my life, Jerardi. So
that right? Her dad was a great basketball player at West Virginia, played with Jerry West.
Well, she sat down next to me, and we got to flirting, and we're eating ice cream because it was Cold Stone sponsored, so we're eating ice cream. We're just flirting. And she said, I'm just a country girl from West Virginia. I love the Steelers. And I'm like, she was a Steelers fan. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, so I brought you on just because, it's basketball season, and you do Penn State. I know Maryland's allegedly playing Penn State. Dude, I've what'd they say? I've lost my mojo. I haven't watched any college basketball. I love Beano. I even love college basketball, but I've seen the whole thing as some sort of – last time I had you on, we talked about Eddie Feigner. I remember saying, is it an exhibition or is it real? I don't know where it is. Where is it, man? I want to talk some college hoops, some football, and some horse racing with you. I didn't even realize that I even had this on my desk or that your name was on it. But such is life. Serendipity's all around us.
Absolutely. So college hoops, Maryland, Penn State played a couple weeks ago. It was not a good game. Both teams played badly. Penn State won 55-50 on a Friday night. So what, about 10 days ago now?
How many people are in the building? Are you doing these games?
I am. I'm there for the home games. We're doing the road games on TV, which is not a good way to do games, but it's.
So where do you do it, from your house?
No, I don't have a studio built in. I actually I have to drive up to Penn State. We do it with my broadcast partner who lives up there. It's
Okay,
fine.
so let me get the Dick Jerardi here. Dick's from Rogers Forge, worked at the News America with me, got a hotsy-totsy job with that tabloid thing up there in Philly, and he never came home. So you live in Philly, but you call Penn State basketball games because you're, like, great at what you do and you know the history of all of it. So you actually drive up and down the mountain on these icy days.
Yeah, I haven't had any. You just got to be smart about the weather. It just hasn't coincided with any of the games yet, fortunately.
You know what Springsteen calls that facility, the Bryce Jordan, the Lion's Den. Great Springsteen song, by the way. So
yeah, those are great.
I got all sorts of props around here for you today.
All Springsteen songs.
So nobody's in Bryce Jordan, right?
A couple of the players' families can come in, so maybe 200 people. That's it, and that's basically. I mean, there's some places. Like in Indiana, you can have a few more fans at like the IU games and the Purdue games, but I suspect there's nobody at the Maryland games at the Xfinity Center. I mean, different states have different rules, or very few people. Penn State plays Maryland actually in the last regular season game. It's the first Sunday in March.
Forget that, like, you call the games at Penn State and you're into this, and it's great for the kids, and the kids get to play, and they get to show their talents and, like, all of that. I'm just sickened by all of this, Dick, right? I mean, the money running the colleges and the fake football season they had. And I feel good that the kids are playing. But other than that, and I know why they're playing, and then it goes back to, I haven't hugged my kid in a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
So there's a little part of this where I get what the NFL is doing for $1. I get what baseball's doing. By the way, if you need a hit and run club ticket, I got one here for you.
Ooh, hit and run club.
Yeah. Maybe after the game, we'll go get a couple beers together.
That's
go down there. Go to the bird feed room, as you remember.
Is that at the stadium now, or is that at Old Memorial Stadium?
Oh, no, come on, man. This is a 1970.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Let me see whose autographs.
I just didn't know if they put a new hit and run club at the new stadium. Yeah, I remember.
Signed by a Roland Heeman, so I guess it's probably 81 or 82, 83, somewhere in there.
I had to have been in the hit and run club, although I was mostly a right field bleachers guy.
Hold on, I got an older one here that's laminated. I think this might have been the night that I met Kiko Garcia there after he got the game-winning hit. Yeah, this is signed by Henry Peters, if you look on there. So you get old school. Just for sports, I've stopped watching hockey. I'm just not. I'm trying to figure out why I loved sports as I sit here and look through all my old ticket stubs. I've been having fun with all my old ticket stubs. You know why I looked for my stubs, Dick? When Hank Aaron died, not only did I remember the night that, the pitch and all of that, Al Downing, the whole deal, but the next year he played the American League. My dad took me out to see Hank Aaron play.
Play for the Brewers, sure. Yeah.
Right. So, I thought this was the ticket stub, and I've kept it all these years. I even laminated it, if you can see that. And as I turned out through the era of the internet, we played the Indians that night. So it's from another night. So I don't, but I did go see Hank Aaron play. So I'm trying to, gauge the value of sports through all of this. With all of my friends who've made a living and love sports, you love gambling and horse racing, but you love sports, man. Like to be getting in your car and driving up to State College in empty arenas. This is really a test for those of us who love sports, right?
I think that's a great word. It is a test because it's not remotely the same. And college hoops and certainly college football are desperate for fans. It's just they're not the same sports without them. The NFL is a studio game. Yeah, look, I know it would be great to have people there. But the NFL is a television sport, and they basically ignored the pandemic. It never happened in the NFL. They had their draft. They had free agency. They didn't miss a game. They played the Super Bowl.
Well, we played on a Wednesday afternoon at one point, but yes.
That was a little silly. That got a little nuts, but that's just the way it is this particular year. But, yeah, look, it's not remotely the same, but it is a test for all of us who like the games. I think the kids, when you watch the players, I think there's certainly less joy than there would be normally. Visiting teams have a better chance than they normally would have because there just isn't anybody there to yell at them and try to pull their pants down when they're trying to throw the ball on the sideline and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's not the same, but hopefully we're near the end. But, if you had told me last March we'd be wearing masks 11 months later, I'd say there's no chance of that happening. So predicting anything here is hard to do.
Because we're the United States of America. We run our races and we play our games and we stand for our flag and we do all of that, right? The basketball side of this, pull the curtain back, because that's one of the reasons I've invited you. And last week, legendary scout passed, and I was connected to him and 100 other people around him. So I started to call around and start saying, well, you come on to talk about Tom. And but more than that, I think, like, for the kids that have been swirled up in this, and I think to myself, if this were the 1979 Orioles and that happened, right? Or this was one of my childhood teams, or my Little League team, or the wrestling team, or, you know, it's something that really mattered for every youngster in this country who plays girls field hockey, lacrosse, swimming, whatever your sport is. This year's been a very, very strange year for whatever the pathway will be toward Olympics, professionalism, a scholarship, whatever that brass ring in the catcher in the rye is for you. If you're a 13-year-old athlete or a 20-year-old athlete, this whole thing's changed a lot, right? And for Penn State specifically, you were one of the last guests I had on last year, dude, right? Like, I looked, because that's one of the reasons I saw your name. I'm like, I'm going to book Dick on. I wonder who I had on this time last year, you know? You were literally on, like, March 8th or whatever. Penn State was playing really well. You were top 10 team. It was a big deal for the first time ever, right? Give me the basketball side of this, because you're in on the Penn State side. And maybe one day Bino will sit down and tell me the Maryland story. Probably too intimate with it. But give me the last year in the life of Penn State basketball.
Well, it's been bizarre, like everything else. Right after I talked to you, you know, they were ranked this day a year ago. They were 20-5, ranked 9th in the country, exactly 1 year ago today. Then we ended up, we're in Indianapolis, getting ready for the Big Ten tournament. It had actually started. It was a Wednesday, if my memory is serving me correctly. They had a couple preliminary games. And then we're at dinner at St. Elmo's in Indianapolis when word comes out that Tom Hanks and his wife have the coronavirus, and that Rudy Gobert has it, and they're shutting the NBA down.
Most importantly, had the shrimp cocktail arrived, and was your nose running?
Yeah, yes, both.
You know, you can get that cocktail sauce here now. I saw it 2 weeks ago. I said to my wife, it'll make you cry. Keep going.
So within about 5 minutes, we all looked at each other and referred to our dinner as the Last Supper. We knew it was over. We knew we were in trouble. And I'm sitting the next afternoon. I don't know, it's like 11:30. The tournament is supposed to start that day on Thursday at noon. My broadcast partner, Steve Jones, says to me, we're going to get an email in the next 10 minutes that the Big Ten tournament is canceled. He was off by 2 minutes. It took 12. And then I started scrambling. How am I going to get home? I said, you know what? I don't know, because I didn't have a return flight, because I didn't know when I was going to go home, because it's a tournament.
You thought they could actually play all weekend for the first time. You actually wanted to be in Indianapolis for 5 days.
Oh, absolutely. So I said, you know, let me make a play. People can relate to this. I said, let me see if I can get on the Penn State charter. I'll just rent a car and drive home from State College, which I did. Because I'm thinking it's like 9/11. Are planes not going to be moving? I don't know nobody knows what's going to happen. So I get home, and then 2 days later, everything stops. Nothing. Nobody's playing. Nobody's going outside.
Dick, I think you were on the show like Monday or Tuesday that week, because we were previewing
probably
the tournament.
Yeah. And look, I had been on the road a lot before that, and I consider myself very fortunate. I wasn't wearing a mask. I was on airplanes. None of us were thinking about it. And Nestor, I was actually that Sunday before the Big Ten tournament, the last live event I was at with actual people was my granddaughter's district swim meet, where she was crushing everybody. She made it into the state. She had a potential to win state championships in her age group, and that was going to be at Penn State in 3 weeks. Well, it never happened. So to your point about young kids who were advancing and doing stuff, that never happened. So that was a Penn State experience we thought was going to happen that didn't. Get on the charter, come home.
You change your life forever having those kinds of things taken away, right? For everyone, yes, right?
Sure, of course, for kids and their parents and everybody wants to see it. Does the kid in the next year lose interest? Fortunately, she hasn't, but you don't know that. That could happen. So we get off the charter to the very expected, oh, by the way, guys, you were going to be in the NCAA tournament for the first time in a decade. There's no tournament. So just go home. And then it's a long, very complicated story we don't have to get into here. But in October, the coach is forced to resign. So they now have a new coach at Penn State. It's been a whirlwind. And the team is actually good. They played the number one strength of schedule in the history of the strength of schedule rankings Their record, they're a couple under 500. They've had 5 Big Ten games. They've been ahead in the last minute and lost. It's just been one of those, but that's kind of the league. The league is it's really close. There's not a lot of difference between top to bottom. So yeah, it's been a weird, long, strange trip to this point, and how it's going to end, where it's going to end, I got no clue.
I think on TV and missing all of it, and the notion that they're playing and not playing. We're Coppin State, right? We carry the Coppin State games here proudly. I've got my Coppin banner back here next to next to Art Modell. We are playing. We're not playing. We might play. We could play. We're going to move that game.
Yeah,
then the snowstorm comes, right? Then natural disasters happen.
Total chaos.
Yeah, and my dear friend Chris Pika, who I think you know as well, he works with Conference USA down in Dallas, and they took their fall season and put it into the spring season. Right. So they're playing 58 games a day, and then the ice storm comes and knocks out everything. You're playing games against Texas Broken Christian, institution of the international arts. Like schools, you're just taking games to have them, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Maryland played some school like I never heard of before. And by the way, Maryland plays Nebraska tonight, and then they play them tomorrow night. Both games at the Xfinity Center.
And everybody tells me the Nebraska trip's one of the great trips in basketball, to go out there and see a basketball game. Marcus, a bunch of people have said, you want to go see a game somewhere? Go to Lincoln, Nebraska. You'll dig it. And I'm like, it's better than going for a football game because there's less people and you can enjoy it.
Yeah, it's the Haymarket Center out there, and they fill that place. I mean, the Pinnacle Bank Arena. I mean, look, they have no history. Nebraska has never won an NCAA tournament game in the history of basketball. But their fans, look, there ain't a whole lot to do in the middle of Nebraska in the wintertime.
I brought that up with Sam Cook many times. Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, it's a neat town, and they've had some competitive teams. But yeah, I don't know how many fans are getting to go to their games, but not many. And by the way, they had lost 26 Big Ten games in a row until Sunday when they managed to beat Penn State. So there we go.
Dick Jerardi is here. He is one of the voices of Penn State, but he's been my friend since 1984, and I didn't even realize that I had my first ever byline here.
I was on the page with you. How about that?
Jerardi and Aparicio flying together, 1984, still doing it in 2021, right? 27 years or 37 years. Oh, my, 37 years. Wow.
Yeah, 37. Count them up.
Oh, God, man. And we've never had a shrimp cocktail together at St. Elmo's. I think part of this as a fan is that I really felt like the NFL, like when I put it on Sunday, it was good for the most part. I mean, officiating aside and what is a catch, and we'll go through all of that nonsense. Right. But if you gambled on it, if you watched it, it was relatively consistent injury-wise, opt-out-wise. The best team won. Yep. Tom Brady was involved. It was a great story. They won at home. I get all. Ryan Jensen, former Raven, my pal, was involved. So I had a little, juice in it, as you would say. But the rest of this, by and large, the Masters being played, there's no azaleas. The Preakness is run, and I had you on that week, and literally knew it was being run.
Right.
Now they're going to ramp up a baseball season with this half-assed franchise with nobody going. They're going to try to get games in regionally, like hockey's doing the same thing basketball's doing, right? Trying to get I'm calling Eddie Feigner on this, dude, and I'm just mowing my lawn and doing other things in my life and building a new company and having better, smarter conversations with other people because I don't have a Wednesday night for an Ohio State Northwestern game. Yeah, I just don't. I don't anymore.
I get it. And look, I think entertainment, sports is certainly a part of that. People are going to have discovered they don't need to go to the stadium or to the show or to the movies. It's really going to rearrange a lot of our culture and economics in ways people haven't even thought about yet. Nestor, how would you like to be a commercial real estate developer right about now, right? When people have figured out they can all work from home. What's going to happen to the office? Are people ever going to go back to it again?
Then what happens to social structure on the backside of that?
No question.
When we don't go out and touch people.
Right,
it's freaking me out already, and I'm not afraid to tell anybody.
Yeah, no, it's all changed, and are we going to be able to go back to the way it was? In some cases, maybe. In other cases, it's not going to be remotely the same. And we're going to, depending on how much longer this lasts, we may not remember what it used to be like. We may just get into what we're doing now.
What do you miss the most? I mean, you've been doing stuff. You've been going to basketball games, right? Have you been going to the track?
Infrequently, horse racing is a 95% of the money is now bet away from racetracks anyway. So I'm like most people. I can bet on my phone. I can watch on my phone or my laptop.
But is there a point where you really like those trainers and those people
Oh,
and the
sure,
horsemen in the backside and
absolutely.
all of that? I mean, I used to like football players and go in talking to them.
I absolutely miss all that at the Penn State games, for instance. The only game I actually saw and was able to talk to the coaches. The only road game we went to was at Virginia Tech. And they came over and we were talking to them before the game, but we can't go on the floor. It's just, it's part of the protocol. And I get it. They don't want, they don't know what we've done. We're not getting tested when we walked in there.
You're tier not one.
Yeah, that's right. We're up in a booth up high. But my suspicion is that's probably the same for Johnny Holiday at the Maryland games. I haven't talked to Johnny, but typically Johnny would have been on the floor at the Maryland games. Maybe he still is, but my guess is he's up higher. I think, and we're hoping to get down there to be able to do the Maryland game in person early March.
What's 7th of March? Is that what it is?
Whatever that first Sunday is. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Dick Jerardi is here. He's been my friend forever. He's up in Philly, and his Tommy Conwell shirt says, "We're from Philly. Keep the Preakness in Baltimore." Dick,
Yeah.
this is the let's see, it's my 30th year on radio. This is the 30th time we've had this conversation. I don't even. I'll call Marty McGee and I'll work on him and some other people, and I'll get Baffert on, who came on back in October with me. Just bring me. It's been 5 months since you've been on the show. Bring me 5 months closer, and I guess 2.5, 3 months out on a Preakness again all of a sudden.
Yeah. So look, I know you'll be shocked about this, but if the Derby was run today, your man Baffert would have the favorite. He's got a horse named Life is Good, and Baltimorean and Mount St. Joe's grad Larry Colmus called his first race at Del Mar, and the horse won by 10 lengths or so. And
I'm going to get Larry on, and him and Pica and Moeller. They all sing the St. Joe fight song.
No, perfect. Doesn't get any better.
Yeah, so I'll get Larry to do that.
Yeah, we had Jim Schwartz up here, of course, as the defensive coordinator. Another man
knows it too. He sings a song too. Yep.
So Larry calls the first race of this horse, Life is Good, and he wins the race, and he goes, "Life is very, very, very good." That's Baffert's horse. He will run in a couple of weeks. I think the first Saturday in March at Santa Anita, then probably run one more time. And assuming he wins 2 more, which looks like he probably will, he'll go to the Derby undefeated and be the favorite. With
a great name. You can't bet against a horse called Life is Good, right?
A very cool name. And Mr. Baffert will try to get the record all to himself with his 7th Derby win. He's now tied, I think, with 6.
How long you covered racing?
Well, my first year covering it was at the old Sports First, which you pulled up, which would have been, let me think about this, Nestor, 83, 84. My memory is it lasted about a year, fall of 83 to the fall of 84.
You know what, man? You keep talking. I lost my piece. I want to go grab it.
Yeah, my first Derby was the May of 1984, the year Swale won. I actually covered it. John Stedman was with me. I covered it for the old Baltimore News American. But I was working for Sports First at the time, and I think fall of 83, because Sports First covered that Orioles-Phillies World Series when the Orioles won the 83 series.
So Sports First gave you a step up. Like, this was your –
No, absolutely. Now, look, I had some friends at the paper, Mike Marlowe being number one. He got me kind of an in. I did a couple of freelance stories, which were extremely controversial. One on the stewards and one on a guy.
Oh, you went Trackman behind the scenes.
Yeah, after the Codex Genuine.
You weren't kayfabe, as Vince would say, right?
That's right. Yeah, no, I didn't win any friends with that one. Then I had another one about a trainer switching horses and trying to put a fast horse in for a slow one. But despite that, I was eventually hired to cover horse racing and do picks for Sports First. Which, as you know, lasted about a year. So, yeah, my first would have been sometime whenever Sports First started. I think it was the fall of 83. That's
my first bylines here is August 1st of 84. And this is the Real News American.
Right.
I did have the other one was in Sports First, which was a tab, and I have a VLOX of that as well. That probably Bob Nussgaard or Stan Rappaport or Marlowe was gone by then. But I want to show everyone here, the race selections, and it's even great that day we were at Timonium. Okay, you like that?
New York Road Spa, Timonium.
Lamb, Petro, Jerardi, TrackMan consensus, and I started to look at some of the names here. King Leatherberry. You start to see the trainers. You start to see the riders at Timonium there. Andreas Seefeld.
Oh, my Lord.
So I start to see, all of this stuff here, and I remember when horse racing was, a big deal, and keeping the Preakness in Baltimore and all of that.
And look, Charlie Lamb was the lead guy for the News American, and those were his picks, the graded handicap you were showing there. That would have been Charlie. And Charlie lived on Old Trail at Rogers Forge. I remember stopping by his house a couple times to either give him something or pick up something. And then I did similar to what Charlie did for the Sports First, and then we would combine everybody's picks in both publications. And Rich Petro is a wonderful guy.
Dundalk.
He was the computer maven. Like, Rich could fix anything. He was self-taught. This was in the time before.
Hey, give me that thing. I'll fix it.
I said, Rich, how did you figure this out? He says, I read the books. I said, what a novel idea. So, yeah, he was the guy you went to if you needed a computer. He could fix yours if it went bad. If you didn't like yours anymore, he'd find a way to get you a better one.
When his children listen to the show, they're going to love hearing this.
Yeah, Rich was what he really was a gigantic help to me at the beginning of my career, because I really did. If I said I knew nothing, I'd be exaggerating. But he kind of took me under his wing, and he said, look, he didn't say it. He basically said without saying it, I'll help you in any way I can. And he did. He was a great friend, just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And man, he loved the track. He loved hanging out with me, because I had a different viewpoint than he'd ever heard before, because I was a speed figure guy. Most people didn't even know what they were back in the mid-'80s.
You and Andy Byer working in the lab.
Andy Byer and me. And he was the guy all of us looked up to and still do to this day.
Dick Jerardi here working on his speed numbers and telling old Sports First stories from Philadelphia, where my wife and I are going to come up to Philly and grab some cheesesteaks and go home. I have to drop some stuff off up there physically. I'm unloading all of this old stuff that I have because it's been sitting in a box for 38 years.
What part of town are you going to be in? Do you know that yet?
We're going to be in Exton, and then we're going into Central City because there's a sandwich shop my wife wants to hit. And
well, there's a couple places. I mean, there's Joe's Steak and Shake.
Joe's, you've been trying to tell me about Joe's forever. I've Googled it. I've looked it up.
The greatest.
It's the greatest.
Yeah, it's the best. Or Abner's is pretty good down right on Penn's campus with the waffle fries. Can't go wrong there, right near the Bluster.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll text you when I'm coming up next week.
You're
doing the state college thing and back and forth and all this. What's that level of expectation? I mean, is there going to be a Big Ten tournament? Is there going to be a bunch of 100 teams getting together in Indiana and having some hootenanny? I mean, what do you expect to happen in the next 6 or 8 weeks, given that I haven't paid attention to college basketball, but apparently it's happening, and it's in the middle of February, and you've been running up and down the mountain the last 2 months chasing it,
No, it's definitely happening. Yeah, they played 17 games. I've been there for all of them. We're doing the road games on TV, the home games at home. The only road game we went to was at Virginia Tech. But, yes, there is going to be a Big Ten tournament. It was scheduled for Chicago. They have moved it to Indianapolis because that's going to be where the NCAA tournament is played. It's all going to be played in Indiana. Most of it in Indianapolis. They're going to do not exactly, but similar to what the NBA did. They're going to get all the teams there, have them just quarantined, and then as you lose, obviously you'll go home. But yes, there will be a Big Ten tournament like normal. All the teams that normally would show up will show up. I think there'll be minimal fans, similar to the NCAA tournament. They're going to play some games in Bloomington at Indiana, some games at Purdue, but I'd say 90% of all the games of the NCAA tournament will be in Indianapolis, either at Butler, which is Hinkle Fieldhouse, or at Bankers Life, which is where the Pacers play, or in the Dome, where obviously the Colts play.
I went to bed a few years ago, Dick. I was out in Indianapolis, and I had a chance to go over to Butler, and I didn't go. Now, I know I've told you this. Luke and I jumped in the car and drove to Purdue, to Mackey, and we saw Maryland play there. It was, as much as I'll sit here and tell you I've lost my mojo for sports all these years later, man, that is something that was a magical experience. And I think I still am going to be seeking out those kinds of experiences. Like, I've never seen a football game at Notre Dame. I've never seen a game at the Big House. At some point, maybe I will try to punch those bucket list couple of things we just talked about Nebraska in a basketball game, but I haven't been to Indiana for a basketball game, and Harbaugh's brother-in-law was running the place for a decade.
Right.
But
yeah, Tom Crean was the coach for a while. But yeah, Indiana's fine, but Purdue's the best venue in the Big Ten because you got the best of it because it's in the round. It's kind of an old school place. You don't see people building places like that, and the fans are right on top of you. They're great fans. And the ceiling is not that high, so all the noise stays in.
I love the part. It was kind of like being at a Maryland game where, with the newspapers and all that. I love the part where the old blue hairs were sitting right over my shoulder, literally tapped me on the shoulder. You know, in the press area there, I'm sitting next to Marcus and Luke. Place is on fire, but both teams are ranked. Place is on fire. And they yell, IU sucks. So I love that part of it. That lets me know that these people are legitimate. Dick Jerardi's here. Last thing for you is on the horse racing thing. I always ask you to look into the binoculars and tell me, where's this thing going in Baltimore and in Maryland? And you cover it as close as anybody. You've seen what the industry's done and what they really want to have here in Maryland and what the Stronach folks and I don't know what's going to save it, Dick. You know what I mean? I know we're all trying.
Well, look, I think the plan that's out there, and I don't know where it is exactly at the moment, but that's as good a plan as I've heard. If they can do what they're talking about doing with Pimlico, the Preakness will be there forever. They'll make it not just a racetrack, but something for the neighborhood, which has unfortunately been forgotten all these years, and that's obviously part of it. I think when you look around the country at some of the states, including the one I'm in, I think Maryland has the best imaginable plan for a state with great tradition, and it looks like they have the backing of the right people in the legislature and the governor. And if that's all the case, this is all doable. Every bit of it is doable. You run almost all your races every year at Laurel all year long, which is fine, but you build a huge deal around Pimlico and the Preakness, and
hopefully around the city, literally.
And the city, right? The Preakness belongs nowhere but in Baltimore, ever. That's just the reality of it. That it just not going to work anywhere else. Wouldn't work at Laurel. They can say Laurel's 25 minutes away. I don't care. Preakness has to be in Baltimore at Pimlico.
Oh, see, I'm going to send you my pin now while I'm sending stuff out, Dick. All right. How's your family? Everybody's good? Safe? Cool?
Yes, indeed.
I think I've asked you this before. Is that a raven over your shoulder or an eagle? And that's a loaded question for a guy like you, right?
I believe that might be a raven, but I'm not sure.
Ooh, see, you did that for me. I appreciate that. Hey, I hope we get back to cheesesteaks, and I have a bucket list standing date.
Palestra. Yeah, Palestra.
I still haven't done it. We have to do it.
It's still there. They've just been silent this year because Penn is not playing at all. Their season, Ivy League.
So there's no games in the Palestra right now.
There's not been a single game at the Palestra. It's been quiet, which is very disappointing.
Next time there's something there, would you keep an eye out? Because I really want to do it. It's really important to me. Dude, I want to see the Northern Lights, but I probably have a better chance of getting to the Palestra, given that my passport's no good right now. Because you can't fly anywhere, right?
Look, let's deal in reality here. Northern Lights, Palestra, not close, please.
Have you done them both?
No. I don't need to.
I love you, Dick Jerardi, and I've loved you since August 1st, 1984, since we shared. Our names were just about 9 inches apart here on the agate type. On page, we weren't page 1. We're page 6, man. That's the way we did it in Dundalk. Appreciate you, Dick. Thank you very much.
You got it, Nestor. Thanks, pal.
Dick Jerardi, he's up in Philadelphia covering Penn State basketball in Indiana via the internet. Sometimes he's in Jersey, and he even comes to Maryland once in a while for a race. We appreciate him. All of our guests. I'm just having people I love on this week. Marty Conway and I have gone back and forth about the Orioles lease. Janet Marie Smith says she's coming on this week. So I might even call Tom Cousins and Ron Wenning, my old sports, Stan Rappaport, see if they're willing to come on and tell some old stories. See if Bob Nussgaard will come on and tell some stories. Just because it's a storytelling month around here. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. Riding out the plague and making the most of it. We are Baltimore Positive.